You're on the road beyond. Welcome. I'm Todd Duplantis. Good to have you with us on this Monday night. We are live tonight. And take a look at that. Did you like that? Burning Man Festival. Yeah, this road beyond, we're going to take you out to the long trek into the desert north of Reno, out in Nevada. Well, climate may be changing a bit, but take a look at this picture right here. Take a look at this rainbow. Beautiful, right? Well, that was after the deluge that happened out there. The heavens opened up on this unusually dry and arid desert. I mean, after they call it Burning Man, but revelers just weren't prepared. They were prepared for the Burning Man. But despite those record rainfalls, the show went on. Take a look at some of these pictures. Incredible. Now we're joined by our producer, Scotty Berrett, who is dressed up for you tonight, folks. Scotty is outdoors, and he's here to introduce this evening's guest, who is thick in the mud, encrusted in an event that was this year's Burning Man. Scotty?
Well, Todd, I'm actually in San Antonio. We're helping our daughter pack up her things. She's graduating the PhD in physical therapy here at UIW. And so that's why I'm not in my home studio. But tonight, we are going to be joined by a dear old friend of 43 years, Kenny Reff. And he is a burner. Kenny, we know each other for 43 years when we fired up CNN together in that Washington, D.C. bureau on Wisconsin. I know you remember that. But you've also been called a Burning Man, an experience out of the desert. Talk to me about that, Kenny.
I think you're muted, Kenny. If we get you to mic.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know. I had control of that. Okay, very good. Thank you. Hey, thanks for having me. And Scotty, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you make me feel really old when you say we've known each other 43 years, because I think I'm 27. So how can that? But yeah, those were crazy years, those early days of CNN, and then we both went on to do a whole lot of other things. I had my own production company, and in 2012, I discovered Burning Man in 2012, and that first year I went, and then I have been going every single year since then, with the exception of the pandemic years. So yeah.
Well,
I wanted to jump in real fast because we kind of just blew by something, and I know the audience is wondering. You guys were there when CNN initially started. You got to have a story or two to go back to those days. We can't just gloss over the lead here. You guys were at CNN when it was literally an infancy in the cable world. What was it like the first few years there?
Scott, I mean, they called us chicken noodle news. The networks absolutely hated us because we were the startup kids. CNN sued to be part of what's called the White Hat, the pool. That is the smaller group of people that cover the president.
Yeah,
we weren't union. We were not union. That was a key.
That was a big deal. Our lines were cut at least one time, like physically cut. So there was sabotage. Eventually, I mean, this didn't last forever, but it was an interesting time. It was a fascinating time. And I like to say, I don't know, for those of you that have seen Animal House and Broadcast News, it was a cross.
It's like a hybrid of the two.
It was totally Animal House, no question.
Well, I know Scotty, because he was on an earlier episode of the show years ago. We talked about one of the biggest stories he remembers covering was Ronald Reagan being shot. If you could think back to your time there, Kenny, what would be the story or two that stood out to you that you'll remember to this day?
Well, there's that for sure. I mean, when he was shot, like I was in the bureau, and I was told to get on site, and I hopped in my car and ran. Red lights didn't matter, and I had to go cross town and blowing through every single light, and I wasn't the only one. You had to be careful. I mean, Washington went crazy, for those hours. So there was that. There was also the crash of Air Florida?
Air Florida Flight 90 into the Potomac.
That was the one that went into the bridge, right?
Into the bridge in the dead of winter. It was cold as hell. And that was really an amazing story because of the, heroism that ensued to get people out of there.
When you guys started working there, and I want to stay on this just for a few minutes, but we're going to get on to Burning Man.
So much for Burning Man.
I'm a journalist, so this fascinates me.
Yeah.
When I know I worked for startup networks in the past, and they didn't really go anywhere. Did you guys think when y'all started working there that this was really the future, or did you think, you know what, we may be looking for another job in 6 months?
Not me. I knew it was there. I knew it would be there.
Yeah. I never had a second guess. I mean, it was so vibrant. And I remember, people we were larger overseas for a while before enough cable networks domestically picked us up. And I remember being in an elevator where somebody told me that they were on a business trip to Tokyo or somewhere, and CNN was on, and that's how they discovered it. And we knew that this was definitely going to stay.
All right, on to tonight's subject. You're joining us now from another Road Beyond location. You're in Virginia right now trying to dry out after a wet Burning Man festival. Had you ever gone to Burning Man where it rained before?
Yeah, actually. I'm actually in DC, but in any case, okay. Yes, actually. And it's so much of it is unfortunately a blur for me, so I'm not good about dates, but maybe.
I wonder why it's a blur.
I wonder why. Yeah. You remember the 60s, you weren't really there.
Yeah, okay.
Right. But yeah, there was rain previously, but in all these years, let's see, the rain that occurred that year was not as impactful. People did not try to do an exodus. It was at the very beginning. I don't know why so many people freaked out this year and actually disobeyed, Burning Man instructions to please stay put.
What we all saw was the traffic lined up for 7 hours out of there. We thought everybody had abandoned ship.
Right, and that was not the case. First of all, you have to understand that. They call it exodus, and there is always a 3 to 6 hour, departure time. It always takes that. You've seen the pictures, maybe you have them. It's 10 rows across of cars coming down to one single lane. And so there it is. And so it always takes many hours to get out. But the difference here is that you really couldn't move very much. Yeah. I don't know how quickly you can cue things up here in terms of photos, but first of all, what's different about this is when you get a 1/4 inch of rain or a 1/3 inch of rain, it turns into clay.
Yeah.
Right. This is the remnants of an ancient lake bed, and it's alkaline, it's dust, it's not normal dirt. And it turns into actual clay that clumps. And it makes moving tires immovable. And so people get stuck all the time. And, there's definitely an issue now with abandoned cars and things like that. But the media focused on those people that tried to escape. I watched one, I think it was ABC field report, that reporter was there. And, we know, right, when we're doing this kind of report, we interview lots of people. Well, and then you choose, what is the soundbite you want to use? And that shapes the story, right? Those of journalism know there's a thing, something about the lens, where we point the lens shapes the story. And that's editorializing, unfortunately. And we got a lot of clickbait going on now and sensationalizing. And so what this reporter chose to focus on was a soundbite from a couple of people that were in their car. And their soundbites were like, we can't move. We don't know where to go. We're not given instruction. That's what they chose to use instead of the other 60,000 that stayed and said, you know what? I can't move. Right. I'm not going to go across the playa to that camp. I'm going to stay in my camp and get to know my neighbors. And that's what we did. And it was, the rain was like 12 hours. It was wet for another 24, but 36 hours later after the event, it was all rock hard again. And we continued on.
I remember a picture you sent us of a beautiful girl on a sofa in the middle of the mud, waiting for things to dry out.
Right.
I mean, that's and bikes. That's another thing about you've got 70,000 people. They all have to get around, so they use bikes. How did you use bikes in that mud? You just didn't, did you?
No, it was impossible. And then people came up with all kinds of methods of walking. It's not really great to walk barefoot. This is a very alkaline environment, and it will hurt your feet eventually. And so like in this image here, you see, I think he's got plastic bags on his feet. But so people were putting like garbage bags with gaffer's tape on their feet, or doing socks and various things. And even if they were barefoot, then if they washed it off pretty quickly, they'd be okay. But the point was, but most of us really just stayed really local. And, we had
when you've got a city built overnight of 70,000 people, look at some of these aerial shots. And we've even got a shot from space. This is a massive gathering of people. And you've got that many people in that literally small area. Well, I would encourage everybody to go to Kenny Reff's blog about this, because 2012, 2013, he gave us a perfect view of what it's like to be part of Burning Man.
Well, let's open it up for our viewers and listeners right now, and thumbnail sketch of Burning Man, because when I first started hearing about it, it sounded like a concert to me, and then I hear it like a pagan ritual festival. So I mean, it's all over the place. Maybe it's all in one. For people on the outside who've only seen pictures of Burning Man, what is your take on it? You've been going there for over a decade now.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Burning Man is actually so many things, so you hear that, there's, it's a big dance festival, it's a big art festival, there's drugs, there's, casual sex, there's, nakedness, and all those things are true, but they don't define it. And they're also, just a portion of it. For a lot of people, one of the things when you actually start to see pictures of the art that's done there, every year, the New York Times art section does a major review of what's going on there. It's an actual force in the art world. And, the people that create this stuff are so industrious. Let me just say that, for people that don't know, they interpret Burning Man, it's a bunch of hippies in the desert. They are the furthest thing from hippies. Right? Hippies, and I know because I lived that time, they're not industrious like this. This is like creative, industrious. It's, incredible work ethic. It's
organized, very organized.
It's snarky. It's fun loving. And, but it's harsh conditions. So for instance, my partner, she doesn't like camping generally. Camping at Burning Man, that's extreme. So she came twice, and for me, and that's the end of it.
They build a full city there? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So actually, that was one of the things when I first went that surprised me. I envisioned this utopia that would be, kind of beautiful. And in fact, it's very industrial. There's a lot of generators, right? There's nothing there ahead of time. So in order to have all of this stuff, in order to have, dancing and loudspeakers and cars and all, art cars, that sort of thing. It requires power. So there are generators that are going and that sort of thing. But all of it is, there's an ethos that is called leave no trace. And in fact, not only is it an ethos, it's a requirement. This is federal land. It's owned by the Bureau of Land Management, federal. And if Burning Man does not literally clean up its act every single time, they will not be allowed to come back. And we're talking, and on that topic, one of the things that separates Burning Man from all the other festivals, and nowadays there are so many festivals, right? Is this ethos. There's something called the 10 Principles, and it was written by the founder, Larry Harvey, who passed a few years ago. And he came up with these 10 principles. You can Google it. And it's things like leave no trace, radical self-expression, community involvement, and it's really good, like this kind of standard stuff you would want in a community. I can't recite them all off the top of my head.
No victims. In other words, no victims.
That separates it from typical festivals. Yeah.
Well, you got some funny stories too. I mean,
tell us. I want to hear about Brand Your Ass.
I'll tell you, like Scotty mentioned the blog I wrote. So, I'm a journalist. And when I'm a photographer, professional photographer. When I went the first time in 2012, I was just so taken. I had to document it. And it's fun reading it 10 years later because it is totally through. And we'll give you everybody the URL in a moment. But it's so cute because it is really through the eyes of what we call a virgin, right? A burner virgin. And so like Brand Your Ass, I came upon this camp in my first day or so wandering around, and it was a Old West corral. I mean, with all the props, like there it is. So there's Brand Your Ass, and you step up and you can choose which brand you want. Now, luckily, it's actually ink and not a hot iron, but your butt is branded, and then you have to parade in front of the judges. And, they'll clap and award and hoot and holler. So there's a lot of, comic stuff and snark and fun. It's been described as like Disneyland for adults. I mean,
I was thinking a real brand would have made for an uncomfortable rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
But what the hell?
Sitting around.
Yeah.
But and again, Todd and Kenny, it's a city. So they even have a kind of regulation with regard to the motor vehicles, and many of these are art cars. Talk to me about that. What do they call it? MVI?
Yeah, DMV. So first of all, you can drive your car there, but then you're not allowed to drive it after you get to your camp until you leave. The only vehicles that are allowed to drive are what are called art cars or mutant vehicles. And these are works of art on wheels. Many of them have incredible sound systems, and they become mobile dance parties. But this image you're seeing right here, mutant vehicle inspection. So the DMV, as you know, that's where you go to get your car inspected. Well, here it stands for Department of Mutant Vehicles. And all of the art cars need to line up literally for an inspection. I mean, Burning Man, even though there's quite a few rules. They are really very responsible as an organization, and this is an example of it. They have an inspection there, and if your brakes aren't good, your lights aren't good, if there's any kind of safety issue, you're not going to be allowed to use your vehicle at Burning Man that year.
Kenny, let me ask you this: you're in the middle of the desert. Are there cell phone towers nearby, or do they have portable Wi-Fi? How do they communicate with the masses out there?
It's a great question. And unfortunately, there is more and more communication happening now. I say unfortunately because, for years, you were totally off the grid. I mean, I have a great story about, I'm in business for myself. I had a client that was, like a vice president in charge of all communications for a major pharmaceutical firm. He's in charge of all North America. And, I was doing a video for him, and Burning Man was coming up. And so I let him know, okay, the video production schedule is fine. There's this 2-week period. I'm not going to be here. And that's going to be the time for you to review your stuff because I'm going to be off the grid. And he's like, and we're on the phone. And he says, oh, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm going camping. And he says, oh, where? And I said, out west. Oh, like where? Nevada. Long pause. Are you going to Burning Man? I'm like, oh, yeah. And I didn't want to tell him because this guy was actually fairly straight-laced, and a big pharmaceutical company, big client. And when I told him that, maybe because I'm in the creative industry, he was like, fantastic. My cred went up. You know, he was so impressed. And so now, you know, it's like I've realized that that's a thing. But I forgot how we got on that tangent. What was the question you asked?
You were talking about communications out there.
Oh,
Let me ask
right. And so I had to tell him that because there was no way that I could respond to any emails at all during that time. You're totally off the grid. There were no cell towers or anything. Now there's a little bit of that, but it does get, as you know, if you're oftentimes at any large event. Right. You know, it gets inundated and it goes down. But, you know, there's this thing called Starlink, which, right, a satellite thing. And so some
Elon Musk's deal.
Yeah. And so some camps are like doing the Starlink thing and then making Wi-Fi available. Mostly people like are offline. They may use their phone. It's like I will use my phone. I'm a photographer. So, you know, iPhone 14 is fantastic. But I'll keep it in airplane mode and use it as a camera.
Yeah. Let me ask, before we go past it, let's get your website. If people want to check out your blog, where would they go find that?
Well, let's see. I'll give you my my company, which is Limelight DC, limelightdc.com, and then you do a forward. And if you go to limelightdc.com, you're not going to find the blog because this is my corporate website.
Right.
But the secret URL is you then type in limelightdc.com/Burning Man.
Burning
Man, got it. Okay, we're going to have that in our social media.
And that blog is fantastic. I read it, and I'm no longer a what do they call a virgin burner?
Yeah, virgin, yeah.
A virgin. I'm no longer a virgin. Okay.
Well, let me take you back a bit because we've got about 6 minutes, around 6 minutes left. I want to bring in a guest who may remind you of your past. You were involved with something called Gross National Product years ago.
Yes, sir.
And I think we've got John Simmons joining us now. If we can get him to unmute his microphone. John, are you there? Try your other mic. Try the other one on your phone.
But you still need to unmute yourself, I think.
Yeah. There you go.
Hi, guys. Hello.
Hey, John.
Hey, man. I worked in Disney World, and I was a Boy Scout. And I'm ready for the burner. Like, I just want to know, do you need antibiotics because it's called Burning Man? and then, like, Kenny, I've got some mushrooms and champagne, of course, and I've got a hat.
Yeah, you're all set.
I'm ready.
You're totally right.
You don't want to leave Burning Man with a burning sensation, I would say, John.
For sure.
That's right. You want a full body condom if you can possibly.
Well, I saw your pictures, Kenny, and you know.
No, I feel like, you know, really like the three of us. So Todd, you know, I mean, Scotty and John and I, we had an amazing. We were all in our 20s, I think, back then. And
what about Animal House?
Yeah, I mean, we had an amazing time together, and I really feel in a lot of ways this whole Burning Man thing for me has been a rewind. You know, I mean, we had that amazing time when we were young, and then we got really serious, you know, with our careers and our families and all of that. And now, you know, we're empty nesters or thereabouts, and you know, this is like a rewind. I mean, it is so playful. You know,
we had John on last year, I believe it was, talking about GNP and all of your exploits and everything you did. I'll give you a real scary story, though. You know who was my mentor in journalism, my first internship that I actually worked with?
No.
Scotty Berrett.
What? That's amazing you survived. Okay.
Yeah, I know. My first day on the job, I was interning at KRIV, Fox 26, which I later went and worked for many years. But they tell me in the newsroom, they go, we're going to send you out with a reporter. I'm like, great. I get my notebook and I'm going with Scotty and he goes, hey, let's go outside and smoke a cigarette. I'm like, okay.
Let's do Burning Man.
Yeah.
That was Scotty, yeah. So that was that'll make you guys feel really old.
We also had lots of adventures, like we did a Wayne Newton float. I think Kenny's always been on the edge of having fun out there. So
yeah, no, well, the trio was we were good trouble, as John Lewis used to say. Good trouble.
Kenny, to get back real quickly to Burning Man, we've got a few minutes left. I saw a video in Reels on Facebook, and the guy talked about the cost of doing Burning Man. A group of 4 people, cost of around $1,800 for the full weekend. That included all the food they brought with them, renting tents, the land, their tickets to the festival. It's not a cheap thing to go to, but if you think about it, 4 people for a weekend full of fun for $1,800, that's really not that expensive. I mean, I guess, can you spend as little as much, or is this going to cost you an extraordinary amount of money?
Right. That's a great question. There are lots of ways of doing it. I mean, at a minute, first of all, the actual ticket cost, has gone up over the years. And so I think this year was $575. And you have to remember, that's for a full week.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you decide to go for 1 or 2 days, it's the same, but that's highly discouraged anyway. It is basically, when you add up, and for many people, there's some airfare involved, and you definitely need a bicycle. And so, I would say typically you're talking with the ticket price and all of that, it's probably a minimum of about $1,200 per person before you do anything regarding your camp, your food, and that kind of thing.
Right.
But the thing to also keep in mind is that it's what's called a decommodification. That's one of the principles. It's decommodified. There is nothing for sale there except for ice, which is required by Nevada law for health reasons, so that people can keep their food, from spoiling. But nothing is for sale. Everything is gifted. It's called a gifting economy. Wow. And that doesn't mean that it's barter, and so what happens is, and it doesn't mean it's trinkets either necessarily. So when you're with a camp, the camp's offering could be a dozen different workshops over the week. It could be dance parties. It could be food. There's bars, and it's all open, all free, no money exchanged.
Kenny, we're at a hard out right now. We appreciate you joining us on the show. Kenny Reff, former CNN employee, knows everybody on the show here, and a burner. Check his website out, limelightdc.com/Burning Man. For the Road Beyond podcast, I'm Todd Duplantis. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.